Welcome back, friends. Many thanks to President Trump and Prime Minister Narendra Modi for having sorted out matters and having cut out what looks to be a good deal between the US and India. On Tuesday, when this deal was announced by President Trump, the market was supposed to open 1,200 points gap up. It did open gap up, but it quickly lost much of its profits in just 5 or 10 minutes of opening. Started losing, and the day was not as great. Something was going on which showed that the market did not or was not completely convinced of this deal. I'll tell you. Firstly, there's a lot of merit in this deal. And I don't want to get into the politics, but there are some good things. President Trump has signed an executive order on Friday, by the way, that removes the punitive tariffs on the Indian imports. This cements a trade, energy, and security deal aimed at normalizing the India-US ties. As you remember, in the month of August 2025, these punitive tariffs were imposed on India. And according to Donald Trump's executive order, India has committed to stop directly or indirectly importing Russian Federation oil, has represented that it will purchase US energy products, and has committed to a framework with the United States to expand defense cooperation over 10 years. Accordingly, I have determined to eliminate additional ad valorem rate of duty imposed on imports of articles of India. Now, the government sources citing a Ministry of External Affairs says that diversifying our energy sourcing in keeping with objective market conditions and evolving international dynamics is at the core of our strategy. All of India's actions are taken and will be taken with this in mind. That is the statement of the Ministry of External Affairs, right? Which means to say that that in order to secure India's energy security, it will take the steps that are necessary towards that end. What is confusing the market, and this is something which is you have to read between the lines, or in fact, even if you do not read, you will understand that the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has also been empowered to invoke the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or the IEEPA as it is called, to impose further sanctions if the compliance falters. But this is conditional on Indian compliance with the terms of the deal, which according to Donald Trump is that completely stopping Russian oil purchases. So the chief economic advisor Anantha Nageshwaran has maintained that India's partners, including Moscow, recognize that these constraints are there and India does not expect disruption if the prices stay stable. The order codifies an interim agreement reached earlier this week following a February 2 phone call between President Trump and Prime Minister Modi. At the center of the deal is India's commitment, according to Trump, to seize all direct and indirect imports of Russian crude oil, and it also gives power to the US Commerce Department to monitor this movement of oil, whether direct or whether indirect, from Russia to India. Okay, so all this is something which is a little conditional in nature, right? There is not something that is cast in stone, and you have to remember that should anything go wrong, for example, if this Ukraine-Russia ceasefire expected does not materialize, or things get a little more difficult, then things can change a little bit. In fact, Um, the According to President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine, the United States wants Moscow and Kiev to find a solution on how to end a war in Ukraine by June when the summer begins. Okay, so now if something goes wrong, or let us say these talks between Iran and the United States and Oman, many things are there, start faltering, then things can change a little bit on this front. You should remember that there was a very good deal that was signed by the United States and South Korea last year. Okay, that was done last year. South Korea had celebrated its trade deal with the United States last October, but Trump has just recently raised tariffs on South Korean goods to 25%, saying that the Korean legislature had not acted fast enough in ratifying the deal. Okay, so India has reportedly promised to buy $500 billion worth of US goods over the next 5 years. According to the Office of the United States Trade Representatives, US goods exports to India were valued at $41 billion in 2024. Okay, so let's take $40 billion. $40 billion multiplied by 5, $200 billion. Now that should increase to $500 billion over the next 5 years. Now, is it possible that if this does not materialize, then the parts of the deal can change? The tariffs may go up once again. If there is anything that Donald Trump and his team finds that India has not been committed completely to stopping Russian oil, and that's still some Russian oil, they can always renege the deal, right? So there are some gray areas which makes the whole thing circumspect. Therefore, as we look at the markets over the next few weeks, you may find that from time to time the markets, although look positive, we should be opening nicely. But as we begin, time to time you will find that this a little bit of unresolved, I would say, or gray areas may cause some sort of corrections in the market. If you were to ask me whether we can identify, because all this comes by the decisions of the US government, I think we have pretty much been able to figure out what will be the methodology the US government will use as to when, how long, and this whole thing can continue, or whether there will be some interruption, whether you will find the US midterm elections as a trigger point to change some of these terms of the deal and could invoke any punitive tariffs again. I think we have some handle over what is going to happen. And but I can only tell one thing, is that it is good on paper. It's good, and we thank both President Trump and Prime Minister Modi and the entire teams of both the countries. But be careful, just as in the case of South Korea, there are possibilities that some portions of the deal may change as well. And this, we have developed some methodology to figure out when this can happen. Do join our Premium Plus. We'll tell you how long the markets can continue on a good path to rejoice. They have not really rejoiced the deal, right? Three days it fell, in fact. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, pretty much nervous and weakness in the markets. But this was also due to certain international pressures. But when these can come again, we will let you know in advance using our research methodologies. And to get in touch, you may WhatsApp us on 9820861044. Have a great week ahead. We should be off to a good start, but some signs of nervousness may slip a little later. Happy investing. God bless you. Take care.